understand that every child grows up trying to understand who they are and where they belong. They learn about themselves through the reactions of the people around them, their parents, teachers, classmates, and the wider community. But for autistic children, this process can be especially complicated. Many of the natural ways that they move, communicate, and experience the world may be misunderstood or constantly corrected. Over time, those experiences can shape how they see themselves and whether they feel accepted for who they truly are. For autistic children, the answer they receive to that question can shape their entire sense of self. Many autistic children grow up in environments where they're constantly being corrected, redirected, or told to behave in a different ways, differently than what comes naturally to them. They may be told not to stim, not to move a certain way, not to talk about their interests too much, not to avoid eye contact, not to be too sensitive, or not to react strongly to sensory input. And over time, these messages can accumulate. A child may begin to internalize the idea that their natural reactions are just wrong, embarrassing, or something that needs to be hidden from the outside world. And when that happens, the child is not just learning social skills, they're learning that their authentic self is unacceptable. And this is where identity becomes so important. Letting autistic children be themselves does not mean you are abandoning guidance or support for them. It just means that recognizing autism is not something separate from the child. Autism is a part of how their brain processes the world and how they experience sensory input, how they communicate, how they think. It's woven into their identity. And if we approach autism only as something that needs to be fixed or managed, we risk sending the message that the child themselves need to be fixed. Instead, the goal should be to help autistic children understand themselves and feel confident in who they are. And one of the ways that identity gets suppressed is through what many autistic people call masking. Masking happens when autistic individuals hide or suppress behaviors that feel natural in order for them to fit in with others. And this might include forcing the eye contact, suppressing their stimming, copying social behaviors, or carefully rehearsing conversations. From the outside, masking can make a child appear to be more socially typical, but on the inside, it's exhausting. Children who learn to mask heavily may begin to feel like they're performing a role rather than just simply existing as themselves. They may constantly monitor how they speak, how they move, how they interact with other people. And over time, this can create a lot of confusion about identity. A child may begin to wonder which version of themselves is real. Is it the one that they show to the world or the one that they hide? Allowing autistic children to maintain their identity means giving them the permission to exist without constantly performing. For example, stimming is often misunderstood. Many people view the repetitive movements or sounds as behaviors that should be stopped. But stimming often helps autistic individuals to just simply regulate their nervous system. It can reduce anxiety, process sensory input, or express excitement. When we automatically try to stop these behaviors without understanding their true purpose, we may unintentionally remove tools that the child uses to manage their environment. Supporting identity means asking why a behavior exists before deciding that it just needs to be changed. Another important part of identity development is respecting your child's interests. Autistic children often develop deep focused interests in specific topics, and these interests may appear unusual or intense to other people, but they're often a great source of joy, a source of learning and confidence. So instead of discouraging these interests, parents and educators can use them as pathways for connection and growth. Many autistic adults credit their childhood interests with shaping their careers, their creativity, and problem solving skills later on in life. What may appear to others as, I guess you can call it an obsession, It may actually be a strength waiting to be nurtured. Communication is also another area where identity matters. Some autistic individuals communicate verbally, others may use alternative forms of communication, such as typing, assistive devices, gestures, or just regular visual support, pointing out things, or taking your hand and bringing you to it. Respecting a child's identity means also respecting how they communicate. And communication is not defined by how closely it resembles typical speech. Communication is defined by the ability to express their thoughts, feelings, and needs. So when adults prioritize understanding over forcing the conformity, children learn that their voices, no matter how their voices express themselves, they matter. Letting autistic children just simply be themselves also means allowing them to set boundaries around sensory experiences. Many autistic children or individuals at large have heightened sensitivity to sounds and textures, lights, or any kind of other sensory input. What may seem like minor discomfort to others can feel very overwhelming to them. So instead of dismissing these sensitivities as them overreacting, try acknowledging them. Acknowledge them so that you can help the child learn to advocate for their needs. When a child is allowed to say, "This is too loud," or "This texture bothers me," what they're learning is important life skills. They're learning self awareness, and self awareness is the foundation to self advocacy. As autistic children grow into teenagers and then into adults, the ability to understand and communicate their needs becomes incredibly important. But that ability develops best when children are not constantly taught to ignore their instincts. Identity is also shaped by how adults talk about autism. If autism is only described in terms of deficits or limitations, then these children may begin to view their identity through that lens. However, when autism is discussed as just being a different way of thinking and experiencing the world, the children are more likely to develop a balanced sense of self. Autism doesn't, now, this doesn't mean that autism doesn't come with its challenges, because it does. Navigating a world that's built for neurotypical minds can be very difficult. Hell, it's difficult for people who are neurotypical. But autism also brings a unique perspective. It brings creativity, attention to detail, and deep focus. So, helping children understand both sides of that reality allows them to build a healthy identity rather than feeling defined only by the struggle. Ultimately, letting autistic children just simply be themselves is about creating environments where they feel safe to exist authentically. A child who grows up feeling accepted for who they are learns that their differences are not something that they need to hide. They learn that they deserve relationships where they are understood rather than just being tolerated. They learn that their voice, their perspectives, and their experiences have value. And perhaps most importantly, they are going to learn that their identity is not something that needs to be erased in order for them to be accepted and belong. Belonging should never, ever require someone to disappear. When we allow autistic children to develop their identity openly and confidently, we're not just supporting them in childhood, we're helping them to grow into adults who trust themselves, who understand their needs, and they're able to move through the world with a sense of dignity and self respect. And that is one of the most powerful gifts that any parent or community can offer to individuals who are on the autism spectrum.